Good evening, folks.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Fandom Power. It's FANdor. It is the penultimate episode, as we only have
one more to go.
One more left of this season. My head was swimming this week. Hey, everybody, it's us. It's me, Wes Arscott, obviously. I'm a host here.
Yes, you are.
But I've got these two other dudes that just show up here every weekend, weekend in and out. And here we are. All the rogues are here tonight. Andrew
Howdy,
Daw,
folks.
Yo.
Hank McLaughlin.
What's going on?
Here we are. Listen, guys, as I said before, this is our second to last episode of this review series, and I hope you guys have been enjoying this as much as we have.
It's bittersweet already.
Isn't it, though?
Yeah, man. This was a long haul, actually. This is the longest of the series we've covered.
It is. Hands down, it is. 12 episodes. If this is your first time with us, welcome. Why didn't you find us sooner? However, thank you for being here. And of course, to everyone that has been here all along, nice to have you back.
And if you're just finding us, that's cool too. Go
Yeah.
back and watch the other stuff.
Welcome aboard.
As I have always said, and I will say it again, you can think of us as the annotated book or annotated audiobook, as it were, for Andor, as our reviews are beat for beat and we cover all the plot points, all the Easter eggs, as well as any of the greater Star Wars lore connections that we just happen to stumble on throughout the show. And there's lots.
Yes, there is.
Man.
And if you think you've heard it all because you've watched all those other guys, we're not those other guys. So I hope you do stick around and see what you may have missed out on before.
But it's not fan service.
Is it?
Maybe from us.
Well, so on that note, Tony Gilroy has made a comment. I don't know if it was this week. On the plethora of Easter eggs in Luthen's gallery, and he's totally blamed it on the art department.
Huh.
Good on you guys, art department.
Excellent.
I had no idea it was in there.
That's fantastic.
Keep doing it.
New feature here on the show. It's that time once again for another installment of Bad Star Wars Jokes. This week's Bad Star Wars joke comes courtesy of Andy. I don't know where you pulled this one from, but
Google search.
Okay, thank you, Google. This one made me chuckle. Guys, what did everyone call Lando Calrissian before he became a really good pilot?
I don't know.
Crashdo Calrissian.
Nice. Star Wars dad jokes.
Every time. Every time we do one of these, it has not lost its enamor for me.
No, it's good. We're gonna have to start making them up though. There's only about 5 on Google.
Listen, guys, if you have a bad Star Wars joke, please send it along to us at any of our social media outlets, or you can email your bad Star Wars joke to us at fandompower3@gmail.com. And this has been another installment of Bad Star Wars Jokes. Listen, before we get into the breakdown, I just want to let everybody know we've had a little bit of an influx over at the YouTube channel. We are presently sitting at, I didn't check it before I came in the door tonight, but 88
today.
So that means in the last 30 days, we've had a significant bump.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking, is it time to run a contest?
Why not?
Do a contest?
It might be time to run a contest.
Well, here's what we're going to do. What are we doing here? I'm going to say this. If we can get to 100 subscribers by the 31st of December, we'll do a little bit of a giveaway.
Mm-hmm.
If we can get to 100 subscribers before that date, I'm going to pull this out for a second because I need the camera. I need the real estate here.
Oh, there you go.
If we can get to 100 subscribers by December 31st, I will send one lucky subscriber this brand new in-box Star Wars The Black Series Imperial Clone Trooper. I think this is they call him the Shock Trooper. You may know them as the Coruscant Guard.
I'm subscribing right now.
Hey, wait a minute.
Does it matter that I've subscribed 4 times?
Nah.
Because that's not self-serving at all. Well, that's pretty good though, isn't it?
That's
100 subscribers. If we can get to, there by the end of the year,
that's a good
We
start.
could probably do more.
You think so? Wait a minute now. So, but there's a bit of an ask here. So I know we've asked it before, and we're going to ask again. Please tell your friends, tell your family, tell everybody in the world that you think likes Star Wars and other pop culture stuff that we like to talk about. Get them to subscribe. If we can get to 200 subscribers in the same time frame, Hank, what do you think we could do? Oh my.
Why is that General Grievous?
It could.
That is General Grievous. All right, guys, if we can get to 200 subscribers in the same time, not only will we give away this clone shock trooper, but we will also give away that General Grievous. What I want you to do is I want you to keep a look on the channel because we're going to have a short contest video that's going to have all the details on exactly what you need to do to get in. And we'll be watching the numbers. And come the end of the year, there may or may not be a draw for 1 or possibly 2 action figures. So tell everybody you know, and good luck to everyone out there.
You better subscribe or I'm going to open it.
All right, guys, before we get down to the nitty gritty, let's talk about just sort of general thoughts and feelings about this week's episode. This one is Daughter of Ferrix.
The tagline should be, "You'll believe a droid can cry."
Opening with a gut punch. What a shot.
Oh, man.
I got to tell you, I wrote my notes from the perspective that I actually believed that was fluid between his lenses.
That's very possible.
Yeah, I don't really.
Metaphorically speaking, it's the same. They've achieved the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Although I've now understand from the descriptive audio that it's not fluid between his eyes. But hey, you interpret it the way you want.
That's
you know what? The heat had been off. He's a warm droid. Condensation builds up.
That is true.
That's true.
Maybe it just builds up in the right spot.
For weeks I've been saying this. We've talked many times offline, both in person as well as in our private chats. And I've said, there's always, these shows always have like at least one filler episode, and I keep waiting for the writing to drop off. Like they just kind of came in. We know it's a slow burn. We all kind of went that, oh yeah, 3 episodes work as a prologue, but you got through that,
and it just
kept it just elevated to this
it's
high bar, very high bar, and just it stayed there throughout. I can honestly say I don't feel like there has been a drop in the consistency or the quality of the writing on this show.
No, it's pretty incredible, actually.
We got a bit of Wars in the Stars this week.
Finally got some.
We got the whiz bang. We got the whiz bang that I think we were eagerly anticipating based on the marketing.
Got a pretty cool twist on that.
So satisfying to watch. So satisfying to watch. I made way more slides than I need to on this. Oh my gosh. Any more before we get right into it?
Oh, we got our first comment.
Oh, hey, we got a comment coming in from Sean on YouTube. Says, that's a cool figure. Which one, Sean? Which one are you talking about? Because I think they're both cool.
They're both pretty darn
cool. They are freakishly.
Yeah,
cool.
Wes and I are just going to trade them if you guys don't.
We're just going to mail them back and forth to each other. Right. All right, then. Without any further ado, let's get down to it. This one is Andor episode 11, It's FANdor number 8?
Something like that.
FANdor 8,
Yeah.
I guess, because we did
Well,
no, we
those
did
three
one
were separates though. So
although we recorded them very very back to back to
Yeah.
back. All right. It's been 8 weeks though.
It has.
Yeah. Okay. So it's 11. This one is Daughter of Ferrix. It aired Wednesday, November 16th in 2022. This one written by Tony Gilroy, directed by Benjamin Caron, who you may remember directed episode 7. That was Announcement. It has an advertised runtime of 46 minutes, just like last week, or an actual 37 minutes and 44 seconds if you skip over your titles and your end credit sequence. All right. So the episode opens with Cassian and Melshi clinging to the face of an open quarry. Now they've managed to shear down the sheer wall, maybe 20 feet or so, and their hands and feet are bloodied and bloodied from the bare rock. Now, it's a perilous perch because if either man were to fall at this point, it would most certainly be fatal, as the drop to the shoreline is hundreds of feet. Well, then the sound of twin ion engines rumble overhead, and a TIE Reaper passes by in a gentle circular search arc.
Quick.
And through gritted teeth, Melshi complains that he can't feel his hands, and Cassian tries to reassure him with, "They're leaving." You get the impression that the two men have been clutching this rock face for some time, and Cassian has really been Melshi's cheerleader throughout this, because Melshi says, "Don't say that." But then he quickly changes tune, and he asks Cassian to actually tell me they're leaving, which he does, which is inspirational. Miraculously, by the way, the TIE Reaper doesn't spot the two men, and it actually does fly off.
You'd think they would stick out being all white and orange against the rock background.
Well, there is that.
Depending on how fast the guy's flying, he wouldn't be looking.
The orange striping really. Follow-up comment from Sean. Oh, Sean is talking how cool that General Grievous looks.
Nice.
I agree. He's super cool. Underwhelming in the films, but an awesome figure and an awesome scary villain in the Tartakovsky series.
I was just going to say he was amazing in the Tartakovsky.
Yeah, he's like terrifying in that one. Talk about the TIE Reaper here for a second. This is one of 2 TIE Fighter variants that were introduced back in 2016 in Rogue One. Now, this one is designed as a high-speed troop carrier designed specifically for battlefield insertion. Now, unlike most TIE variants, this one is equipped with both shields and a hyperdrive, meaning that it can operate for short periods, up to 5 days without a support ship or installation. And in addition to the pilot, the Reaper can carry a communications operator and up to 10 troops. I threw in the cockpit view from the Star Wars Squadrons game because I thought, oh, it's a beautiful. We don't get to see that in any of the live action stuff. So thank you for EA and DICE for doing that for us.
Yeah, that game is wicked.
I still like it, and it was a free expansion too. Yeah. All right. In a crossfade, we transition to Ferrix, where we see a blurry mass of light, which I thought was from B2's perspective. The view, as I said before, I initially thought was from inside his ocular lens.
Yeah.
And the metaphor here is that B2 is crying. Did anybody not think that?
I certainly don't think cups of tea can see.
Right.
It's an interesting filming choice if it's not him crying.
So the descriptive audio actually says it's the fluid and it's the teacup. And that got me, that I'm like, what? And sure, it makes sense. And I've made some note here about how he's been written as the loyal dog. And my initial thought was Marva died in that chair and he's not moved.
Yeah.
They've moved her body to the bedroom or whatever.
My initial thought was, oh no.
Oh, she's in the chair right now?
Or like, no. Oh, like she's died off screen and Cassian is too late.
Which is true.
Yeah.
It's true. Yeah. Well, the implication that Marva has died at home. Oh my gosh, what do we got here? We can hear a couple of women talking. One remarks about how peaceful she looks, while the other says that we're going to have to get rid of that bedding. The women remark how it's heartbreaking, But it's more heartbreaking to know that B2, as the loyal dog, has been chairside the entire time. Because when one of the women asks, "What about the droid?" B2 begins to shake quite violently until the teacup flies off his head. And it actually is caught by Brasso, who happens to be there, catches it
nice
before it
to
hits
know
the
that
floor.
they use them as a table in times of crisis.
Well, I just thought, isn't that interesting, though? Like, how many we all own pets?
Yeah.
Who hasn't trained their dog to put a treat on their nose and they don't move? They can then just, right? Oh my gosh. I don't want to lament too much on Marva's death, but I made a comment earlier this week to you guys privately, and I just want to reiterate that for the sake of our audience. It took Star Trek 7 seasons and 5 or 6 films to get a robot this human. Did anybody think we'd ever see a Star Wars droid cry?
No.
And I know they've pushed the limits with droids. I mean, that relationship between Lando and L3.
Mm-hmm.
But this just hits on a completely different level. So fantastic writing, fantastic direction to get that character to come so far.
It's a whole other level of sentience. It's like I always thought I viewed them as pets before, but now I lean like children now. Like,
oh my gosh, yes.
Like, you know what I mean? Like,
I do. I really do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Brasso kneels down beside B2 to tell him that they're going to take Marva's body out of the house, and he'll clear the room so that B2 can be alone with her to say his goodbyes. But B2 slowly raises his head to look at Brasso, and he says, "I don't want to be alone. I want Marva." And that just kicked me right in the throat as I got a little. I didn't cry, but I did well up a bit. Brasso tells B2 that Jezzy is going to stay in the house until he gets back from work. And B2 says, "I can't go with you." Calling Jezzy into the living room, Brasso tells her that B is going to help her get organized. And Jezzy says that there's a lot to be done. B2 protests quietly, telling Brasso, "You said I could go with you." And Brasso looks down at the little droid and he says, "The daughters of Ferrix require your assistance in a matter of grave importance." And then Jezzy adds, "We need to pull together, B, all of us." At that, B2 just turns his head back to the front and he retracts it while Brasso and Jezzy share a somber look. A short time later, the daughters of Ferrix carefully and respectfully remove Marva's body from the house to a waiting repulsor tram. Marva is wrapped in a burial shroud and the short procession is led by Brasso. Inside the house, B2 watches from the window, while out on the street, citizens stop to pay their respects, including Cinta, who's now working at the cafe just across the street. And as the repulsor tram pulls away, the people go back to their business while Cinta cleans up a table outside the cafe.
In that long shot, you can still see B2 in the window.
B2 in the window.
And as they walk away, his head goes down.
Yeah.
It's just a super
He's moved from the chair side now to the window.
Right.
Just a crazy portrayal of
and
grief.
Also, I mean, I don't want to harp on the scene too much because it's a long show.
Sure.
The framing of that window when they open with the Imperial symbol, the way that the cross hairs of the window form the Imperial symbol, then they pan. So there's some really good cinematography in the show.
Time. Well, when she goes back inside the cafe, Imperial attendant Corv, who's now working undercover, remarks to her that it looks like someone has died. Cinta says, "It happens." And Corv asks if it was someone that she knew. But Cinta tells him that she'd only started working here last week and goes about putting some clean dishes away. What did I say here? I don't know whose choice it was to capture B2's reflection in the window when they take Marva out, but it really drives home the emotional weight of her death. Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Also, man, this whole cat and mouse thing between Corv and Cinta, I did not think would be as like I'm watching it and I'm wringing my hands going, ooh, who's a step ahead of who here? They are literally two sides of the same coin, and they're they could reach out and touch each other.
Yeah.
That's so clever. All right. Also, I don't think Cinta is so dense that she thinks that he's a nobody.
Probably not.
I also had, this is very fleeting, and I know this is like, when you want something so bad and you kind of transfer your own energy into it. For a brief second, I had it in my head that Cinta has warned them and they've faked Marva's death and they didn't tell B2 to make it look credible.
Oh, wow.
I don't think that really happened. But back on Narkina 5, Cassian and Melshi, having made their way back up to the quarry face, now find themselves overlooking a pair of humanoid fishermen in another of the planet's quarry lakes. The two appear to be alone. Cassian remarks, well, they didn't walk here. Then he and Melshi low crawl away from the ridge without being spotted. A short while later, the two men make their way down into the quarry on the opposite side, and they find a lower spot from which to observe from. Well, the two are surprised to see that the alien fishermen are in possession of a quad jumper.
Little baby quad jumper.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that.
Tiny little baby one.
Melshi asks Cassian if he can fly it, and Cassian shakes his head and he says, I don't know, it's an old one. Melshi asks, is that good? And Cassian answers, do we have a choice? But instead of answering the question, Melshi jumps up and he starts to run towards the ship. Cassian, quick on his heels. Sorry, Andy, you were going to say something?
No, it's just like he's overambitious at this point.
Well, you can feel the excitement. Yeah. He's like, we're getting out of here.
Yeah.
Cassian, quick on his heels, tells Melshi, wait. And he adds, be careful. But Melshi is confident as he says, they can't see us. And even if they did, they'd never get back in time. Still trying to maintain some semblance of quiet, Cassian asks, what if someone else is in there? But Melshi dismisses the question with an enthusiastic, we're getting out of here. I feel it. And then he takes off at a full sprint, leaving Cassian to catch up. As the two men hit the beach surrounding the quarry lake, the two aliens who were checking some of their nets notice them, but they just stand there and casually watch as the two guys sprint past. And it's for good reason, too. Unbeknownst to Cassian or Melshi, the fishermen have set up a motion-activated net launcher on the shore that the two men have inadvertently triggered. The sticky netting envelops both of them and quickly shrinks, rendering them helpless, just a few meters short of the quad jumper. Like we were almost there.
So not only is the Empire cast in a wide net, so are these guys.
Yes, and the fishermen actually chuckle. You can hear them laughing when they catch them.
Yeah.
Then the nets, which are still connected to the launcher by long lines, drag the men into where the two alien fishermen can better inspect their catch of the day. All right, let's talk about this quad jumper for a second here, because initially I was like, oh, it's the quad jumper from The Force Awakens.
Yeah.
But it's not.
Mm-mm.
It isn't. At first I thought it was a straight up reuse of the animation model, and that may be partially true, but I haven't decided if they've actually constructed this practically or if it's just a 100% reuse. And I do say that it's a partial reuse because the more I looked at it and the more I compared it to The Force Awakens, there are a couple of significant differences. Enough actually that I would suggest that this is either a big continuity error or it's a new ship. It's still a quad jumper, but it's not the same model that we saw.
Well, so there's 40 years at this point between those
absolutely
two ships, and Melshi says it's an old ship.
Yes, absolutely.
Right? So
you don't get a sense of how old it is when it's sitting in the desert on Jakku. It's just like,
right.
Hey, we'll just take that quad jumper. Oh, okay.
Exactly.
Predecessor to it.
Quite possibly.
Easily 40 years is, how many TIE fighter variants do we get in just the 3 years of the original trilogy?
Well, the quad jumper, as it appears in The Force Awakens, is designated as the TUG-B13. So it's a tug. It's made by the Subpro Corporation. Of course, Subpro is the same company that's responsible for the Z95 Headhunter and the ARC 170, both of which are considered precursors to the X-Wing fighter in some ways. The quad jumper is a space tug used to move cargo containers around orbital shipyards by magnetically attaching itself to them. Now, canonically speaking, the TUG B-13 has a crew of 1 with room for 2 passengers. It has 3 seats and no more. And although there were several quad jumpers in the Citizens fleet at the Battle of Exegol, there's no mention of any weapon systems, shields, or hyperdrive. So presumably, like every ship in Star Wars, it's basically a Honda Civic and is endlessly modifiable. So let's get into those differences I was talking about. This ship has been scaled way down, and it's really apparent when you see the 2 images that are sized kind of similarly, like the 2 images on the right. Instead of having a ladder accessed hatch, which we see on the one from the Force Awakens, we now have a humanoid sized door and a boarding ramp, which actually has the 2 lower engines being offset further apart.
So in theory, it's roughly the same size entranceway as that ship we saw way back in like episode, 1 or 2?
Possibly.
Where the security guys jump out?
Quite possibly. I'm going to propose this. If it could actually be that. I was thinking from certain angles, especially with that netting hanging off the wall, that if they did that practically, that's the practical sets for the Razor Crest. I could be wrong on that, but that's where my mind went. I mean, but if you look at the image with Rey and Finn, like that thing's like 2/3 of the Falcon size.
Yeah.
Not so in Andor. But you really get a sense of it. These 2 photos, by the way, they come from the canon book, The Force Awakens Incredible Cross Sections, and there it is. That is the quad jumper to scale with Unkar Plutt and Zuvio. Poor Zuvio. So yeah, they've really scaled that down. All right, thank you for allowing me to flex that.
You do love ships.
I do. And there's going to be more ship stuff this episode. I'm very excited. All right. On Ferrix, Attendant Korv, now back in uniform, takes a video call from Dedra Miro, where he relates to her that Marva Andor has just passed away the previous night. Dedra impresses Captain Tigo, our local prefect, to ensure that someone is watching the situation. And he tells her that because Marva was a prominent citizen, that her death will warrant some kind of big send-off in accordance with local customs. He says that they're going to request a permit to close off Rick's Road, and as usual, he will deny it. But then the captain is kind of caught off guard because Dedra says, no, you'll give them a permit. And she says that they want a funeral, but to keep it small, limit the time and the people in attendance, that by doing so, that will put the locals in what she calls a box where they can stand back and watch.
So crafty.
The implication being that the funeral is the perfect lure to draw Cassian in. And begrudgingly, Captain Tigo accepts the orders with an "as you wish." Well, then Attendant here asks Korv, how much time do they have? And Korv tells them that they only have 2 days because the local Ferrix custom calls for the deceased to be cremated and then to have their ashes mixed with mortar and local stone dust and to be molded into a brick with their name on it, where they can then become part of another stone structure on Ferrix. And I don't know if it was lost on anybody out there, but I mean, when we're talking about the most fascist of fascist Star Wars television shows, it can't be lost on you, the Pink Floyd reference here.
Put another brick in that
all
wall.
In all, you're just another brick in the wall. By the way, the translation there, for anybody who's wondering, that says Marva Andor, daughter of Ferrix. Well, back on Narkina 5, the 2 fishermen move to inspect their catch. Now, the male Caridian is identified in the credits as Dewey Pamular. D-E-W-I, Dewey.
Mm-hmm.
Dewey Pamular. And he speaks like what I call Pirate Yoda. Tells his fishing partner, Freedy Pamular, that the 2 are escaped prisoners and they should offer them up to the Empire for 1,000 credits apiece, remarking that there's better fishing on land these days. Now, Freedy answers in an untranslated Narkinian, but I'm sure he agrees with him. Well, then Dewey remarks that there aren't much squigglies left now that the prison has poisoned the waters. Melshi offers an honest, "We meant you no harm." Cassian shouts, "We killed nothing." Dewey goes on about how all the water near and far is boiled. And Melshi blurts out, "That's the Empire." While Cassian emphatically adds how they were trapped in the Imperial prison and it's their prison. Freedy says something in Narkinian to Dewey, and the two share a laugh. And Cassian asks, "Well, what is it? What did he say?" Dewey tells him that, "Alive or dead, the offer goes to the two." At that point, Freedy, who has a folding cleaver as a prosthetic arm, unleashes the blade, and both Cassian and Melshi begin to panic. Dewey continues, "Kill anyone they would. Kill the water. Kill the squigglies. Care not who they kill, eh?" But then his tone changes as he insults the Empire. He tells Cassian and Melshi that the Empire won't be killing him today. At the same time, Freedy uses the cleaver arm to release the netting. And as the two lay there floundering on the beach covered in the slime from the nets, Dewey tells them that they'd be wise to jump off world quickly. He asks them, "Where you be looking to run now, eh?" And Cassian and Melshi exchange a quick look before Cassian, as it says it like a question, "Niamos?" And the two Pamulars chuckle as they nod and repeat, "Niamos." Then we cut to the quad jumper as its four engines sputter, and the ship, a rickety old ship, lifts off and slowly climbs out of the quarry, headed for space. All right, let's talk about our two aliens here for a second. We've got Dewey Pamular. That's the gentleman here on the left. He is a male Caridian. His species first appeared in 2016's Rogue One. Now, he's played by Matt Lyons. This is actually kind of funny. Matt Lyons, no stranger to costume characters, because it appears that every other role that he's ever had since he's been in acting has been in heavy costume or prosthetics, including his longest running gig, which was 44 episodes of a kid show called Tweenies that ran from 1999 to 2002. He also played, he was the physical embodiment of Dr. Quadpaws back in episode 6. And ironically enough, his IMDb doesn't even have a headshot. Our other fella here, Freedy Pamular. Now he is a male. I presume speaking Narkinian. I guess that makes him native to Narkina 5.
Possible.
I would say that he's a Narkinian. Now that's Liam Cook. Liam Cook did one episode of Doctor Who back in 2015 where he played just the body of King Hydroflax. He's done one episode of a food show called Food Unwrapped in 2013 where he played himself, and a 5-minute comedy musical called College Romance, the Musical, where he played the coveted role of Classroom Dude. Nice. Oh, yeah. He also played Ochi of Bestoon.
Oh, that's cooler.
All right. You know that we like to address some of the discourse out there. And you know what? I think we're actually going to create some, because I've heard some other outlets this week refer to these two as fishermen, as brothers. And I just want to propose that there's something else going on here. Now, they are not the same species.
No,
that doesn't mean that they can't be brothers. There's mixed families.
That's true.
I honestly believe that we are very quietly getting the first interspecies same-sex relationship.
Yeah. I mean, I call it sort of weird until the captions literally said he about Dewey.
Yeah.
I thought those were breasts.
Oh, really?
So I thought, I did think they were a couple either way.
Yeah.
Oddly enough.
Well, who knows where his upper flurman is located?
Almost identical design to Dewey is in the Star Wars Galaxy's mobile game or something like that.
Yeah.
The character has a totally different name but looks identical.
Did I make a note on that? I didn't. I didn't.
First name Ock.
There was a thing. Yeah, there
something.
Ock Psylocke was the Rogue
Ock
One
Psylocke.
character, and then there's another one in a kid's. It's a canon comic book. Rook.
Right.
Rook, who has the same kind of monocular.
Right. He's a Jedi.
He's part of the, what do they call them? The Technomongers?
Something like that.
Technomongers, maybe. So yeah, no one else is talking about this. No other outlet that I follow or that I even like briefly skim over has even tried to address this. And I'm like, this is such a huge deal. Why isn't anybody talking about this?
Yeah, like inclusion's good.
Absolutely.
Don't just write it off as something else.
I thought for sure that all the redneck, we can't stand anything that might possibly, make us uncomfortable would be all over this.
They would have to read
woke.
They would have to read the credits.
Well,
get their last names. They're not going to put the work in. They just hate part-time. Yeah.
Listen, I know that nobody over at Lucasfilm is paying attention to us, but on the off chance that this makes it back to someone, if that was the intention, I tip my hat, because
nicely done.
Inclusion is important. Yeah. And I think that's
how it is in headcanon anyway. So
I think it's wonderful.
Change my mind.
Just before we jump ahead, though.
Oh yeah, sure.
A thought on what they say about the waters being poisoned.
Yes.
Could this go back to the reason why we're only seeing Cassian and Melshi? Like, is the water that bad that, some of them literally got poisoned on their way out?
If the water killed off the squigglies.
Yeah.
Mind you, hopefully nobody ingested too much of that.
Yeah, you swallow too much of it.
The poisoned water, yeah.
Does you in.
Indeed. Well, back at Luthen's gallery, Clea works to restore an ancient coin in the back room. That might be part of the coins that she tried to show off to Cloris.
Maybe.
Who knows? Anybody catch anything significant about this coin? I thought, are they showing this to us for is this an Easter egg? I could not find anything on this coin.
No.
Just the 3
points. Kind of resembles some Arabesh, but not.
Yeah. I thought, three lines and 3 dots. Is that representing like 3 factions, like rebellion, empire, partisan? Like, is there some metaphor here?
Like an A could just be A for Andor.
Could just be. That's true.
The Triforce.
If anybody has a theory, a leading theory on this coin, would love to hear about it.
If we were to sort of, tweet the art department, some people might answer questions.
They might,
Maybe.
We should try that. I've tried to hook us up and follow more people related to the production of the show, and it's hard. Like, I could not find Tony Gilroy on there.
He doesn't strike me like that kind of cat.
No, I don't think
he's too busy swearing kids.
All right. So, noticing Vel loitering just outside the front door, she moves behind the front counter and unlocks the door. Well, the 2 women make pleasantries, and this exchange is so parallel to the first exchange that we saw between Mon Mothma and Luthen, and the way that they interacted with that dance of caricatures.
Happy face front.
Yeah. But Vel is the first one to break character, and she just says, "Are we alone?" Clea tries to keep up appearances, but Vel presses her, saying, "Where is he?" So, putting her back to the glass front entrance, Clea reminds her that they have rules for a reason. Vel tells Clea that she sent up a flag yesterday, and Clea is like, "We would have gotten it tomorrow," but Vel retorts, "We?" like it's a question, before adding that Luthen's FANdor Hallcraft is gone. And she knows it's gone because she actually checked the back on her way in. Clea looks quite surprised at that and actually averts her eyes. Then tries to impress on Vel that Vel's behavior and actions are off base. But Vel asserts that tomorrow is too late, and she asks again, "Where is he?" Clea calls Vel off the rails and says, "You're lucky he's not here." Vel scoffs as she retorts, "I gave him Aldani. What have you done lately?" And all I can hear is the Pointer Sisters. Maintaining her composure, Clea leads Vel over to a stone tablet in the gallery wall, where she tells her that she doesn't have lately, that she has always. Growing increasingly angry, she calls it a constant blur of plates spinning and knives on the floor with needy, panicked faces at the window of which Vel is just one of but many.
And that really addresses the thing we talked about before, like how high up on that rebel food chain, if you will, for lack of a better term, she is. And that would suggest to me like very high.
Yeah.
You think about how many players there are, and we know later on in this episode that not all the chess pieces are aware of the other chess pieces.
Right.
You know, so I mean, you have these proto rebel cells that are operating independently, and nobody's really sure who else is out there.
Mhm.
So I mean, she's definitely high up within Luthen's organization, but
Right, exactly.
yeah, we're still a couple years off for the Rebel Alliance, the formal ratification of the
And
alliance.
he seems to be like the way he's trying to pair Saw Gerrera with Anto Krieger,
yeah.
That he is used to, you know, being that like the central spoke,
The go-between, yeah.
You know, because he can sort of contact different groups and
again, it calling into question, like, and we've been asking right from the first time we met him, who is Luthen Rail, and what is his significance to the whole thing? And man, like, I would love to do a character study on him because I think he's just such an interesting guy. Like, I had this thought about him the other day where it's like, I want to get an image of him like in his caricature as the gallery keeper with the wig and the robes and stuff,
and the fake smile.
And then I want to contrast that with him on the walkway talking to Lonnie Young. And below that, I want to put an image of Sheev Palpatine as a senator because it's the same hairstyle, the same clothing style, and then the Emperor. I mean, I'm not saying that Luthen is evil, although that there is a portion of the fan community that's purporting that Luthen might in fact have Sith connections, which I don't think he does. I don't think he's evil. It's just that it goes back to Luthen using the weapon of my enemy.
Right. He's given up the good for the greater good.
Yeah, he's as extreme on one side of the argument as the Emperor is on the other.
Yeah.
Got to do bad stuff to get
He's the bureaucratic Saw Gerrera.
Yeah. I mean, when bad things happen, there are, what is the phrase? There are men who are willing to do evil in order to preserve your way of life, like that kind of person. All right. So regaining her composure, Clea asks what information, and Vel just stares at her for a few seconds before saying, "I'll make sure he knows where it comes from." Vel purses her lips before telling Clea that Cassian Andor's mother has died and that she will be leaving in the morning. And Cinta says it's very busy there. Clea puts on her fake smile again and tells Vel, "I'll let him know," as she gestures towards the front entrance, like, "You're dismissed now." And Vel pointedly tells her, "Do that," before walking out. And as she goes, Clea drops the smile, glaring at her, and follows Vel with her eyes out the door until she's out of sight. And the biggest question I have is, what the F just happened here? Like, was this some kind of power play between the two of them? Because this does not feel like we talked about the Clea might be a stepmom thing and she's just a bitter child, but this feels different.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on that?
I mean, it's super clear they don't like one another.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's probably people that work for me that don't like me based on, like, you know, telling them what to do every day.
Yeah.
For money. But so it's certainly a strained relationship. I think they probably push each other's buttons.
Right.
And I'm not sure what I'm trying to say exactly, but
that whole idea,
they're very smarmy towards one another.
Yes.
I know a lot of girls that are like that, the sort of the offhanded comments of, you know, you look really nice today. That must have taken hours, or
right.
You know, it's that back and forth. Like, I don't know if it's like a pecking order thing or
yes, that's exactly what it feels like.
Yeah.
Like, there's a hesitation there between the two of them before Clea says, "I'll make sure he knows who it came from." Like, was Vel concerned that any information that she'd hand over would be delivered like it came from Clea? Like, it's almost like they're are they competing for favor with Luthen? Because I don't get that like, I thought Vel she's angry at Luthen for reasons that we still don't know.
Yeah, I mean, that's her only real safety, though.
Yeah.
I
suppose so.
I mean, like, because she's got this other persona. There's a lot of Batman stuff going on here, if you will, a lot of secret identities. So, and the in her case and Luthen's case, I really believe like the Bruce Wayne, if you will, is them in the field, them without the wigs and the makeup and the jewelry and the diamonds and all that.
Yeah.
So it might be a power play. If she had a position where she wasn't in the field instead. Yeah.
It's interesting. They both have this whole, like, what they're doing, and each person, having been in the military, you cannot compare the guy. You can't compare the infantry guy with the cook. I mean, they are both doing a very specific and a very essential job, but they are apples and oranges. And that's kind of where we're at, where Vel's clearly a field operative. Clea isn't.
Yeah.
Right.
They both have responsibilities. They both have pressures and stressors and all the things that go with their specific jobs. But it just feels like there's something below the surface that we're not getting.
Yeah, like, she's testing her. What are you doing that's so great?
You've
earned his favor.
It's one of those burning questions that I suspect will not be answered before the end of next week.
It's true. And from Clea's perspective, with so many agents and moving parts, certainly protecting information and keeping your cards in your sleeves would benefit her. So when she trumps her with a piece of information, it's super important one at this point in the story. That's got to unnerve her a little.
Yeah, I suppose it would.
But at the same time, it would probably piss her off because she's already told her, don't make any calls. They're listening. And here she is. Well, I was just talking to Cinta.
That's true. At least they're doing so. I've mentioned this before. I'm going to get it off my chest right now because I don't want to spend a lot of time on it. At least they're at the gallery where they know it's a privately owned place. Not like Mon Mothma's embassy state-owned residence that's probably bugged to the nines where they just tell all the secrets in the open.
They've also, you don't have a shot of it, but they've moved the Jedi,
they did the Temple Guardian
sort of more front and center.
Yeah, it had a great prominence this week.
Yeah, you move stuff around.
I did not see anything new in the gallery this week. Nothing that made me go
new. No.
Well, maybe the Aztec calendar, but I mean that's neither here nor there. Well, back on Ferrix, Corv sits inside the cafe watching Marva's house, while outside, Cinta is doing exactly the same thing as she cleans up one of the tables. Well, Brasso arrives and he goes inside where he's met by B2, who says, "I'm glad you're back." Brasso pats him lightly on the head as he walks in, and we cut back to Corv, who removes a comm device from his jacket. Speaking into it, he says, "Big man's on site. I want full coverage, spotters front and back. I want to know immediately about any comings and goings, visitors, deliveries, anything." Well, later that evening, as the time grappler rings out the sunset, Brasso stands listening from Cassian's bedroom at Marva's. He looks around the room and he sighs before trudging out into the living room, turning off lights as he goes. Calling out to B2 EMO, Brasso tells him it's time to go. And B questions, go where? Brasso tells the little droid, "Back to my place. I have work in the morning." And B2, not wanting to leave, says, "I'm charging." Brasso says, "You've been there all day," but he'll take the afternoon off tomorrow so that they can come back. Brasso tells B2 plainly, "She's not here. She's in the stone now. She's on her way." B2 whirs as he says, "I can wait to make sure," but Brasso tells B that he can't leave him there alone. It's not what Marva would have wanted. Staring up at the big man, B2's charge level flashes full green as he hesitates for just a moment before asking, "You could stay?" Brasso sighs as he replies hesitantly, "One night." Perking right up, B2 rolls out of his charge dock and rolls over to Brasso's side, staring up at him while Brasso sighs again with a weary look. Again, that loyal dog thing. It just runs right over. You're staying? We can stay? Okay.
George.
Exactly. It's that Spike and the little guy, the little dog.
Yeah.
Well, at the hotel, a fragile and tortured Bix leans her head against the wall of her room. And the words of Dr. Gorst echo as she relives the torture session that she had with him while the ceiling-mounted surveillance camera watches from above. The door whooshes open, and Lieutenant Keysax stands there inviting her to join him. Barely able to stand, Keysax drags her down the hallway into a makeshift headquarters room equipped with a holo table where she's then placed in a chair. From the other side of the room, Attendant Corv, leaning on the table, tells her that he's going to ask her a question, and if he believes that she's not being truthful, he will call back Dr. Gorst. Corv activates the table, and a hologram of a stout man appears. Corv calls the man Anto Krieger before moving around the table to kneel down beside Bix. He asks her, "Is this the man you introduced to Cassian Andor?" Well, Bix's eyes flutter as they well up, and Corv presses her. Bix. She tries to focus on the hologram, but is so emotionally exhausted she just slumps over in the chair. Now,
I thought she was going to have the wherewithal to lie here.
To lie. So did I. I thought she was going to say yes. That's him.
It's actually much more realistic that she's completely broken by the experience.
Yeah. Well, Anto Krieger is not listed in the credits. He's not. He is not listed in the credits. And initially, this image, like to my way of thinking, looks like it could have been pulled from any modern video game rendered with Unreal. So, are we? I want to put it's just a general question here. Do we think we will see Anto Krieger in the season finale?
Or do we just get to see a ship as it explodes?
That's the other thing. I mean, this again looks like it's rendered from a video game. He could never ever make an on-screen appearance.
This might be a carrot they dangle for next season, but I think we have too many moving parts
to have another one.
There's already so many pieces on the chessboard.
Right.
Or does he just send his 50 guys to Spellhouse and pull the strings from his hideout?
I don't.
Or is he a more hands-on?
I mean, if he's I got the impression from the conversation with Saw that he was not just sending those X-Wings. He's going.
Yeah.
I presume that Krieger's maybe of the same kind of, lead from the front kind of thing.
Right. Possibly. I think it's one too many pieces of, although they have dropped his name a lot this season.
He is the Uncle Harlow of the Rebels. Yes.
He is.
Absolutely. He is.
I still think it's too many moving pieces when you consider that we're going to, the things like just based on the trailer, the initial trailer, we've got Dedron Ferrix with Death Troopers. We know that we've seen Cyril Karn wearing like local clothing.
That's
on
right.
Ferrix.
Yeah.
We know that's coming next week.
Presumably that big funeral procession is going to happen.
The funeral procession. We know Cassian's probably going to be stupid and go back. Will Melshi be with him? Probably not. But there's so many moving parts, and that's what you want from a finale. You want all your, a nice complex spy thriller is bringing all the Ocean's 11 elements into the finale. And I think just it might distract from whatever else is happening. This show is so good at doing things off camera that affect the whole, just knowing that there's a face to a guy and 50 of his men are about to die.
Yeah.
That might be enough.
I asked weeks ago, when I was on vacation, was Cassian ever going to go back to look for his sister? And now,
not this season.
Now Marv is dead, so she can't even come clean whether the sister's alive or not. Like, we don't know if she was telling the truth or not. So
also nobody to tell him not to go anymore either.
Right. Well, I agree that there are a lot of dangling plot threads, and the question is, how many of the plot threads are setups for seasons 2+?
Right.
We're going to find out in a few days.
Well,
Absolutely.
What we at least know is the parts they were building on Arkina 5. Because he said we're building season.
Oh yeah,
2.
we're building season 2. Yeah.
So this isn't a spoiler. I don't think it's a spoiler, but so the entire episode of 12 was leaked by
you had
an
said
agent,
that. Yeah.
an agent of the media. And while this isn't a spoiler, apparently there's an after credit scene that's going to give us the purpose of those parts.
Oh, that'll be really, really cool.
So I hope that's true. And without knowing what that is yet, because as soon as I read it, I went, nope. No,
yeah, I did not.
Put that in the freezer.
I have not been
I like to.
that,
I'm really enjoying being blown. Like Andy Serkis came out of nowhere.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
I know. I didn't expect that at all.
No,
but so satisfying to see him by the way. Okay, let's do a little deviation here, and let's have some fun with this for a second. Let's presume that maybe they will, maybe they won't cast him. I asked you guys for 1 or 2 people you thought could pull this off, and I put together a little list. These are actors we think would make a pretty cool Anto Krieger. We've got John Travolta, and I immediately went to John Travolta because I had seen him in like a Facebook reel recently where he was dancing, and he looked just like that, bald with a beard, and I'm like, holy crap, it's John Travolta. Yeah, so that was my first go-to. My other go-to on the far right hand side, that's Tate Fletcher. And Tate Fletcher, you may remember, we've seen him before. He played the Alpha Trawler in the very first episode of The Mandalorian. So he's already got Star Wars bones. And then you guys came back with some cool choices. Andy, yours were?
Jeff Bridges, based on originally his portrayal of Obadiah Stane.
Yeah.
As, the forceful, bald, bearded guy.
I buy that too.
Or Bryan Cranston.
Here you go.
I also buy that.
See him in more stuff. So,
and then Hank, you
a little Sharpie on D'Onofrio's Kingpin, a little Sharpie there, and I mean,
we're still waiting. We're still waiting for him to come clean on it.
We are going to cast this man in everything.
We will find a home
until he finds a Star Wars role.
I threw in Paul Donald White II, also known as the Big Show. Just because of the man's physical presence, but
I mean, right there of all of them, he kind of fits the big. Like when you could easily have photoshopped his head on that turned to blue, and we wouldn't have batted an eye.
I will say this: if of the 2, 4, 6 gentlemen that we have put up on screen here, if one of them is going to make it, if I were a betting man, I'm putting my money on Tate Fletcher. Just because of his association with the company already.
Well, I'll tell you, 4 out of the 6 probably couldn't be afforded. Like we've already blew our load on Kino Loy. We're probably not going to bring in Jeff Bridges.
Mind you, look at all these guys that just want to be in Star Wars because, hey, it's freaking Star Wars.
Well, and they sort of promised there would be no
fan service.
Although we did get Andy Serkis, but there would be no cameos just
for the sake of cameos.
The guy from The Office just shows up and
but I mean,
I took cameos to mean like we're not going to get Han Solo, we're not going to get Luke Skywalker.
Oh, that's also an interesting.
But as far as actors, everybody's game.
I mean, we got Sam Witwer.
There's a lot of celebrity cameos in the other shows, whether they're hidden or not, and even it's been a thing in most of the modern movies too.
Well, that's a very good distinction. Celebrity or actor cameos versus character cameos.
Right.
Just because they're like celebrities doesn't mean they're not fans of the franchise.
No, of course not.
I know, absolutely.
Like better dream than, get in it.
Daniel Craig, Kevin Smith, Sam Witwer, Stormtroopers.
If they wanted me to be in a Star Wars TV show, I would back over both of you.
I'm just from 2 or 3 provinces away. All right. I thought that was just a fun little diversion. So thank you for entertaining that. Oh, we get a comment here from Sean. Sean says, the Big Show for something different for a change.
and highly affordable, I would imagine.
I would think so. He's got a Netflix show.
He does.
Does he really?
He does. Yeah.
He's got some good comedy chops on him too.
All right. Well, Cutting back to Coruscant, we hear the chanting of children as we land on Mon Mothma standing just outside the dining room of her embassy residence, sipping a drink while she watches Lita and a group of other Chandrillan girls about her age in a recitation of what sounds like chapter and verse of some old text under the guidance of a Chandrillan elder. Yielding and acceptance, safe in the old ways, true and steady and braided in trust. The old ways hold, safe in the knot. In the binding, the old ways teach us, bound against the wind, tied to shore, tethered in permanence. As the girls continue their recitation, Vel, who's just entered the lounge, creeps up on Mon, quietly remarking, "Seriously? Is this really happening?" Mon tells her that, well, they did it when they were young, but Vel corrects her and says, "You did it," adding, "I thought this was over." But Mon says it's back, pointing out that Vel clearly has not been following the trends because it's back now, and it's even stronger here on Coruscant than it is at home on Chandrilla. Vel whispers, "But you can do whatever you want." And Mon tells her, Maul Mothma. That's an interesting one. Sorry.
Mothma. I've got a drawing to do.
Mon tells her, "It's not me." And Vel hisses, "Perrin?" And Mon says, no, he's strangely open-minded on the topic. It's her. It's Lita. Well, Vel seems a little distraught at that. And, oh my God, a little bit, right. I don't know what I was trying to say here. She's upset and she says, "Oh no." While Mon remarks how much she loves it and her friends, she says it's the only thing that Lita shows up on time for.
Wow.
Looking up from the recitation, Lita spots her auntie Vel standing in the next room with her mom. Vel, meanwhile, is still floored that Lita would choose to pursue such a custom. And Mon tells her that it was Lita who found the elder. Vel circles around to face Mon and retorts, "Don't tell me you're taking proposals." Now, not answering the question, Mon looks despaired as she says, "I'm in so much trouble, Vel." We're looking at some kind of coming of age ceremony here. Some kind of prayer group, I guess we can call it.
Yeah, but just they're all
wearing uniforms or robes.
So, good point. And I want to just touch on that for a second. That is the outfit and hairstyle that we were first introduced to Lita in several episodes ago, before Cassian went to jail. So this has been happening for over a month.
Yeah. But like in the wording, right? It's all about tying and binding and the knot.
Well, I mean, you know that we're getting set up for, this is the coming of age, I guess, for Chandrillan women who are about to go down the arranged marriage route.
Yeah.
Right.
Which plays interestingly or conveniently or succinctly into the whole Davos Gulden thing that Mon so adamantly refused.
Whenever anyone chants in unison with other people, it feels culty.
It does feel culty. Yeah. I mean, but Mon, she's the first one to say, like, it's not like I wanted to. You know, she made it clear that she had no choice when it was her and Perrin.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
And is this just Lita rebelling for?
Well, okay, so let's hinge on that word for a second. Rebellion. When we're talking about the sacrifice resume, the what have you done? Yeah. By making this Lita's choice, it serves the story to get Mon out of trouble. She can get the credits from Davo, but it takes the responsibility, the weight off her shoulders, like she pushed her daughter into it. Lita can do it of her own volition, and it makes it a little more palatable, I think. But it also speaks to, you know, Mon willing to let her go and not try to interfere with her life. Yeah. I mean, you talk about sacrifice. There you go. Mon was quite willing to she was willing to sacrifice her daughter, even though it's now in it's framed a little bit differently. Yeah. Well, later that evening, Mon and Vel are sitting in the lower lounge of the embassy residence, and Mon tries to bring Vel up to speed about just how much trouble that she's in. She tells her how only a year ago, she was able to regularly withdraw like 100,000 credits at a time from the family trust without a trace. Vel questions for Luthen, adding that she had no idea it was that much money. Well, Mon says back then it was easy. All she had to do was set up a stream of accounts and just move the money between them. But then, a few months ago, a banker back home on Chandrila contacted her to warn her that Imperial inspectors might be taking a closer look at Chandrilan accounts and to make sure that everything is in order. So she did everything she could by pulling all the money into one main account. But at the end of it all, there was still one account out of balance. So nervously, she went to Luthen to tell him that she needed outside help, telling him that she knew the risk involved. Perceptively, Vel says, take Holma, asking Mon, do you trust him? And Mon says she does. But then lowering her voice to a whisper, she says, but then Aldani, suddenly everything was frozen. Mon says she thought Tay could help her replace the missing credits and to get her started again. But instead, what he really did was just uncover how much trouble she really is in. Vel asks her how much is missing. With tears in her eyes, Mon tells her 400,000 credits. Vel then asks when they'll be looking into things, and Mon says soon, very soon. Vel, thinking for a moment, asks, does Luthen know? And Mon tells her, no, not really. And then says, he warned me. Who knows what he knows? And I'm asking that same question. Who knows what Luthen knows?
Right.
Vel leans forward, emphatically telling her cousin, this can't be exposed. And coldly, Mon says, I know that. In the background, the girls' prayer group is wrapping up for the night. And as they depart, the camera focuses on Mon and her teary eyes as she tells Vel, I've found a solution. And then Lita calls out, Auntie Vel. And Vel puts on her smile and gets up to hug and greet her while Mon watches the two and begins to cry. Yeah, so, when she's crying, to me, she's looking right over Vel, right at Lita.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I think that the choice is made. I think it's just a matter of, it's having that next meeting with
giving
Davo,
him that, extending that invitation.
Yeah, and now it's living with your choices, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, these are members of the chessboard that aren't going to be on Ferrix.
Right.
And they're still very super important to the show.
Over at Edie's apartment, Cyril Karn is woken in the middle of the night by his mom. She says he's got a phone call. He goes to the video phone, activating the screen, and hey, it's Linus Mosk.
Didn't think we'd see him again.
The whole moment is played kind of for comedy, but it works really, really well because I think of like how many we've all been there on like a super janky cell phone call where it just keeps cutting in and out. You're like, which is exactly what we get here. The connection is patchy, and Mosk has to shout over the noise of some industrial equipment in the background. In the apartment, Edie hovers over Cyril until he waves her off, but she just steps around the corner and leans up against the wall, close enough to eavesdrop. It seems that Linus is still over on Morlana 1, and he's working a new factory job, some kind of smelter, I guess. Apparently, before Cyril was ejected from the Primor, he had asked Mosk to contact him if he'd ever found any information on Cassian Andor. Well, it turns out that Linus still has a friend in the Primor security force who's been assisting with the Imperial transition. And they had told Mosk that Cassian's mother had died, and there's been lots of communication between Morlana 1 and Coruscant about it. The connection is very spotty, and neither man can make out the other quite clear enough. But they managed to stumble through the conversation until Mosk says that there's a chance that Andor might show up at the funeral. Cyril tries adjusting the screen as he shouts that they need to speak again, but it's no use as the screen freezes and the call is dropped. With the call ended, Edie steps out from her perch and in typical fashion criticizes her son with the mystery of your former triumphs have been vanquished. I can sleep peacefully now. I could not do this sequence justice, so I'm just going to let the visuals speak for themselves. And I would like to present for you the many faces of Linus Mosk.
Very emotive.
That middle one. Yes. It was so I'm like, oh my God, we've all been there.
Yo.
This is comedy gold.
You're still calling him sir too.
Oh, I know. And Cyril is still calling him Sergeant.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
but I mean, technically you carry that with you. Now in a government military, you would carry that for life. In a private security force, I don't know. I guess it's just, customary.
Yeah. They only served one sort of combat mission together, I guess. But
yeah.
That does bond guys.
Absolutely it does. Yeah. Well, back on Niamos, Cassian has broken into his old hotel room, which is now occupied by an alien couple who are fast asleep in the bed. Miraculously, the case containing the credits from the Aldani heist, Clem Andor's Briar pistol, Cyril Karn's corporate-issued blaster pistol, and Nemec's manifesto is still there on top of the shower fixture. Very relieved at that. Carefully perched on the toilet, Cassian opens the case and he finds everything exactly as he left it. Then, flipping open the leather cover of the manifesto, we hear Nemec's voice ring out, "Tyranny requires," and then Cassian quickly slams the book, the flap shut again. But the Aurebesh that we see on the screen translates as, "Control is so desperate because it's unnatural. Tyranny requires." Closing the case, Cassian carefully creeps down from the toilet and quietly leaves the hotel room with the occupants blissfully unaware that anyone was ever there.
Thief in the night.
Nice move. And that goes back to he's a thief.
Yeah.
Old skills, right?
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's going to get interesting here because we go back to Segra Milo, where Luthen is going to meet with Saw Gerrera for a second time. Entering the network of caves, he's stopped by Benthic and another partisan who searches him. When Luthen asks what the search is for, Benthic tells him that Saw is in a mood. Satisfied with their findings, the partisans let Luthen pass, and he finds Saw hovering over a tactical table. It seems that in the 11th hour, Saw has reversed course and emphatically tells Luthen that he will bring his X-Wings and to support the attack on Spellhouse. But he has a few conditions. Firstly, he won't take tactical orders from anyone, and after the attack is over, he wants to loot the Eastern garrison. But he also wants Luthen to cough up the gear that he'd previously offered at their last meeting. Luthen tells Saw that it's too late for that, because Krieger is going tomorrow. But Saw says they're ready. They have the charts that they need. All they need is for Krieger to agree to Saw's terms, and Saw orders Luthen to make it happen. Well, Luthen sighs as he says, "I think not." Confused, Saw says, "Why?" Noting how eager he was previously. Luthen tells him that the ISB knows Krieger's plan and they'll be waiting for him. And with growing paranoia, Saw asks, how does he know that? And Luthen says, I won't tell you that. Saw figures out that Krieger doesn't know, and he shouts at Luthen, "How do you know I won't tell him?" And Luthen says that he doesn't. Still shocked, Saw remarks that it's 30 men that Luthen is willing to burn, as he calls it, before coming to the conclusion that Luthen himself is either ISB or he's protecting somebody on the inside. While Luthen counters, well, he might just be a good listener. Saw retorts, "You think it's worth losing Krieger?" And Luthen tells him that, yes, he did, but now he's not sure anymore. Stepping towards Luthen, Saw asks, "And what if it was me? What would you do?" And Luthen tells him that Krieger doesn't know him, so he wouldn't be vulnerable if he was captured. And Saw remarks, "Well, surely you've met him." And Luthen tells him, well, they've been in the same room before, but Krieger didn't know that. He would send people, they would drop supplies, and they use special radios, which means that Krieger's capture can't really hurt Luthen. And that's when Saw's paranoia begins to get the better of him, as he realizes that unlike Krieger, his own capture could very much hurt Luthen. Luthen tells Saw, "Look, it's your decision." But Saw is too busy looking around the cave, taking in everyone around him. Luthen repeats himself, "It's your choice," adding, "Do they let Krieger go down and play the long game? or do they warn him and throw away a source that has taken years to cultivate? Disgusted at Luthen, Saw waves his arms around as he asks, "You have people everywhere, don't you?" Luthen tells him, "You're avoiding the question." But Saw isn't interested in answering, and he presumes that Luthen has someone embedded with both Anto Krieger's group and the ISB, and he goes so far as to suggest that maybe Luthen has someone right here in the room with them right now. Luthen tries to keep Saw focused on the choice to help or warn Krieger, but Saw is now quite animated as he starts shouting, "Who is it? Who is it?" Giving in to Saw's tantrum, he just points at Benthic and says, "It's Tubes.
It's Tubes.
It's Tubes, yeah, like it's nothing." Benthic, who's now caught completely off guard, calls it nonsense, while Luthen continues to lay it on thick. He calls Tubes his man, and that he tells him everything, going so far as encouraging Tubes, "Tell him, he deserves to know." Now Tubes is the one who's outraged as he lunges forward, professing his loyalty to Saw. But as he does that, Luthen snags the blaster pistol from Benthic's hip and presses it to Saw's chest. Well, now, fully snapped back into reality of the moment, Saw grins as he tells Luthen, "There's no way out of here alive." But Luthen isn't interested in escape. He just wanted Saw to focus his attention, and he tells him to listen. Luthen tells Saw that if Krieger goes down, the ISB will feel invincible and untouchable, and that will give them a clear field to play on. The alternative being that if they warn him, Krieger will pull out of the attack on Spellhouse, and they'll know something is off, and they'll trust nothing, just like Saw is doing right now. Saw takes in the words, and his expression softens. Then Luthen asks, "If I were ISB, why wouldn't I just send you out there with him?" Dropping the blaster from Saw's chest, Luthen tells him that he never wanted Saw to have to make that choice. Saw looks at Luthen as he says, 30 men. And Luthen looks down as he adds, plus Krieger. And then Saw makes his choice as he says, "For the greater good." And Luthen tells him, "Call it what you will." And like a hammer on a nail, Saw says, "Let's call it war." It's my best Forrest Whitaker. I don't know if that's working
bad.
or not.
It's not bad.
Not bad. He does.
Good morning, Vietnam.
Oh my God. Yeah. We really get, we know that Saw was off his rocker by the time we get to Rogue One. We'll know. I mean, he is so paranoid. So paranoid. How does a guy that paranoid get anybody to follow them?
Yeah.
Well, they've been following him
For years.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Years and years and years. And so when you're, it's a hard thing to do to walk away from somebody who's got your loyalty already, even if they are cracking up. But
again,
we just know a few things about Saw Gerrera. First of all, we know
Yep.
things about him from Clone Wars. He's
right.
a grizzled veteran
absolutely.
of rebellions. He's been fighting this just like Cassian says in Rogue One. He's been fighting this fight for so long.
Yeah.
And we've seen him in Rebels fighting this fight. We've seen him in the future. We see him in Rogue One fighting this fight.
Yeah. Bad Batch, he's still doing it.
Oh yeah.
How absolutely James Bond is Luthen to just like walk in, slip a gun out of his number one guy, and, like, and it brings a smile to his face. At the same time, he's paranoid. He's absolutely insane at the same time.
Yeah.
And something like that makes him smile. Like, oh, you got the drop on me. You can't possibly, you can't walk away, right?
These little relationships that we're seeing develop, like who knows who, or the who's who in the zoo, and talked about, the difference between being a field operative versus Clea back in the office. You wonder how many, like if Luthen is a central hub, how many cells, like cell leaders, does he have a face-to-face relationship with?
I would assume not many.
That's why my money's on the fact that he can't live through this show.
Luthen.
Right.
That's an interesting
He's
thought.
too big a player to never see again.
Yeah. Okay.
Because he goes on, right? Like I was in the same room, but he didn't know it.
Right. Yeah.
So how many other guys
security.
was it the same thing?
No, I agree. Like I would love to see, man, even if it's a flashback or something.
You know, when you look at these characters, like we've had like, we don't know anything about General Nadine. We don't know anything about General Riken.
No.
We know very little about Mon Mothma. We know a lot of things like, we're learning more about her character, but we know that she's a senator. We know that she's like reserved and leading a double life, but she's not taking blasters and robbing.
No.
So. And Bail Organa is certainly the same thing. We've never met a rebel leader like this,
right?
He's like I said, he's the sophisticated version of Saw Gerrera. Like he's highly intelligent, super crafty. He might even be the star of the show in terms of like if you were going to have a spy thriller. Cassian is not James Bond. He's definitely front and center. But our James Bond is 100% Luthen Rail.
You know, if we're going to use that analogy, Cassian is the Bond we're introduced to at the beginning of Casino Royale.
Probably.
You know, he's on his way.
Not bad.
Yeah. Oh, did I miss something? Oh, no, I did not. Okay. All right, it's early morning on Coruscant, and Edie Karn leaves her apartment. Now, Cyril, who had left earlier for work, hides on a lower level of their complex, and he watches his mother leave. Then, returning to the apartment, Cyril makes a beeline for an end table containing his mother's safe. Deftly opening the safe, a slide tray pivots out, littered with jewelry. But Cyril has no interest in any of the shiny baubles, opting instead for a metal box about the size of a deck of playing cards. Opening the box, we see a sum of Imperial credits, and he dumps them into his hand, then replaces the empty box in the tray and closes the safe like he was never there. I'm banking on that money that's how Cyril's getting to
that's his
Ferrix. Yeah, that's a ticket.
Yeah,
for sure.
For sure.
I guess he's just gonna
possibly with a stop off at Morlana 1 to pick up his old buddy, the sergeant there.
Linus, maybe
that'd be cool.
Maybe. The question is, what's he doing about his job? Do you think he's just
sick leave?
Well, there is that. There's the legitimate, I'm taking a leave of absence, or I'm just not showing up for work one day.
I'm going to clear my name.
I'm sure
he's
that
probably too far gone that
channels,
direction. Yeah. He's probably, I don't know. He strikes me as a man on a mission, and he's probably losing sight of what's like practical and mundane.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't strike me at all if he just walked away from that position. Maybe put him at odds with Uncle Harlow next season.
Well,
another character I think will carry over to the next season.
I hope so. That look on his face as he's leaning against that pillar very much reminds me of the mannerisms when he was holding on to Dedra outside of the central office. Got that
he's
creepy.
Yeah, he's definitely
psycho vibes.
Yeah, he's becoming that part of himself more and more. When we see
that's all consuming.
Yeah, he's got to
and he's got his own spycraft going on now too.
Very much so. Yeah.
And is it all just to earn that respect from his mother?
I don't know.
Like she's been harping, right?
Yeah.
I read it.
If I do this, I'm gonna get my respect back.
An article was an interview with the actor, and he was talking about the character a bit, and he said
that's Kyle Solar.
Right, Kyle Solar. Above all things else, the Cyril is obsessed with the Empire's mandate of like the on paper. If you wrote their manifesto on paper, he believes in order and he believes in justice, and to the point of like being nutty about it. And he said that's the sort of central focus. And he turns that flashlight on Cassian Andor as the sort of having exposed the flaws in the system to him.
Oh, sure, yeah.
In that justice and that order. So it was a really interesting article. I'll try to send you a link so we can post
sounds
it in the
great.
fan group.
We'll put it up on our stuff. All right. High above Segra Milo, Luthen's FANdor Hallcraft pulls away from the planet. While at the same time, back at the gallery, Clea works away in the back room. Now, a chime goes off on a comm device and connecting Clea to the Hullcraft as she asks, "Where are you?" Luthen, standing in the secret wardrobe on the ship, begins speaking in code, saying that he wanted to reopen the offer. Clearly a metaphor for Saw Gerrera's newfound interest in the attack on Spellhouse. Then, Clea asks Luthen if he closed the sale, and he says that he did, although it cost him more than he expected, because he wasn't in a position to bargain. At that, Clea supposes that he should just come home, but Luthen says it depends. He tells her that he's curious about the other piece, and Clea asserts that he should just come home. Presumably that's Cassian he's talking about.
Yeah.
Luthen asks, is it no longer available? And Clea tells him that it is still on the table. Continuing, she says that the negotiations are ongoing and their representatives are involved, but there are a number of other buyers interested, and Luthen's presence would only complicate things. Don't go to the funeral.
Yeah.
But Luthen counters that they need that piece or they'll have to close shop. Clea says there's nothing more you can do, but Luthen says that's never true. Clea insists that it's a crowded market, but Luthen, who's now grown a little impatient with her, raises his voice as he tells her she needs to think of the consequences of losing the piece to another collector. Clea says she's preparing for every outcome. And as Luthen tries to answer her, the radio signal degrades, eventually cutting out entirely. Clea calls out Luthen's name as she adjusts some of the controls, but it's no use. The signal is gone.
If you grew up in the 80s and you ever bought weed off a guy on the phone, you know exactly what they were doing there. Is Bob home? What time will he be there?
Yeah. Well, the signal is gone, or rather, the signal has been scrambled because cutting back to Luthen's ship over Segra Milo, the looming form of an Imperial ship lumbers into frame. All right. I spent way more time on this than I should have, but I was so thrilled. This is probably the most anticipated moment for me of all the marketing that we saw, because I was aware of this ship prior to its depiction here. So I'm like, oh my God, we're going to get a big thing with this ship and it's going to be a big deal. And here we are. And it is. This, ladies and gentlemen, this is the Imperial Arrestor cruiser. It is the Cantwell class. And technically it appeared back in Solo in 2018 in the recruiting video on Corellia when Han and Kira are trying to escape. It's sandwiched between a pair of Imperial Star Destroyers, and you can barely see it, but it is there.
Designed by Colin Cantwell.
Yes. Yeah. It's also featured in a deleted scene from the film where Han is actually assigned to an Arrestor cruiser. He's part of the Air Wing, and they've just had a battle with pirates. His TIE fighter is damaged, and he ends up crashing it into the hangar, but that did not make it into the film. So the CG and the rendering on it's not final. Now, the Arrestor cruiser itself, it is an arrowhead shaped Imperial capital ship, except the tip of the arrow is actually the aft and not the front. And like almost every other capital ship, it is manufactured by the Kuat Drive Yards and is a purpose-built capture ship. That kind of puts it in the same weird space as the Interdictor class Star Destroyer, whereas the Interdictor is equipped with gravity well projectors that will pull a ship out of hyperspace. The Arrestor cruiser is equipped with 3 RT-17 repulsor tractor beam emitters that can both pull and push other ships. Now, by by pushing a ship away from the Arrestor, it could hold the targeted vessel in place, making it an easy target for its 3 heavy twin ion cannon turrets or the Arrestor's 12 light laser cannons. Failing that, the Arrestor could deploy as many as 24 fighters from its 2 forward-facing hangar bays, 1 on each of the port and starboard sides of the ship. Now, the Arrestor carries a crew complement of 2,770 people, including the Air Wing and its accompanying stormtroopers. Hank, you hit the nail on the head. It is a design by Colin Cantwell. And for those of you out there who don't know who Colin Cantwell is, you should. And you're going to get a quick lesson here. Colin Cantwell, for those of you who don't know, was the concept artist that had did like the earliest designs for practically every ship and vehicle that we saw on screen in Star Wars in 1977. These are Colin's designs for the X-Wing fighter, the Y-Wing fighter, the Cantwell TIE fighter, his version of the Death Star, and the Millennium Falcon, although back then it was just called the pirate ship. And that design actually would go on to become the
Rebel blockade runner.
The blockade runner. Ironically enough, the one design that was never changed is the Skyhopper model that Luke is playing with in the garage. That's
the story goes that Lucas thought that looked too much like Space 1999 to be the main ship, to be the Falcon. So
yeah, I mean, I
redesigned it.
I totally buy that as well.
Yeah, it fully does. Yeah.
So most of these designs would be further iterated by the likes of Ralph McQuarrie and Joe Johnston until they became the recognizable designs that we all know today. So back then, the idea of a triangular shaped, like Delta-like spaceship was actually intended as a fighter. So that's a design that we actually see get recycled later on in the form of the Jedi Starfighter. The Arrestor Cruiser, folks, is the original. It is the OD Star Destroyer.
Mm-hmm.
So again, the idea of the Delta-shaped fighters would be recycled for the Jedi Starfighter and Attack of the Clones, while the dish-like weapons were incorporated into the Death Star and became the focusing array for the Mega Laser. So this ship has like a huge lineage, and it's immensely important to Star Wars. So I'm really happy to see it make a comeback here.
Now let's blow it up.
Colin Cantwell, by the way, after Lucas decided that the triangular shaped ships were going to be capital ships, actually did take a pass at the Star Destroyer. And I've got a shot here. This is the Cantwell designed Star Destroyer, which looks way more maritime. Can I say that? Looks more like a World War II battleship, like the bridge section. Sadly, we lost Colin Cantwell this year. Back in May of this year, May 21st, actually, passed away at the age of 90. So there you go, folks. Just a quick history lesson on Colin Cantwell. There's a fantastic YouTube channel out there. It's called E.C. Henry. That's letter E followed by the letter C. Henry is in Henry. E.C. Henry. Go check him out. The man is a digital artist. He's done a couple of videos. He's done one on the Cantwell Star Destroyer. He's done another one just recently on the Cantwell X-Wing, where he renders them in I think it's Unreal, and has done some short videos with them.
Wow.
They just look fantastic. That's E.C. Henry on.
Please throw up a link to that.
I will. For sure I will. Okay, so what are we talking about here? A proximity alert rings from the cockpit of the FANdor as the radio breaks, announcing, "This is Segra Milo Imperial Patrol. Please identify yourself, Hallcraft." Taking a seat at the controls, Luthen tells the ship's droid mod that he needs an active transponder ID, preferably from Alderaan. Toggling the radio, Luthen begins to stall by asking the Imperial ship to repeat itself. From the bridge of the Arrestor cruiser, Captain Elk announces again, "This is an Imperial patrol. Stand by for transponder scan." Well, just then, the FANdor droid mod finds a transponder code and feeds the number to Luthen on a nearby display. Toggling the radio again, Luthen reads back to the Imperials, "Yes, this is Alderaan 129-12505. And Captain Elk orders a crewman to run the number. Unable to see the ship from his viewport, Luthen asks the droid mod what's out there, and it tells him it's an Arrestor cruiser, and it's at 3 clicks closing. Luthen hits the radio again, and he asks if there's something wrong, and Captain Elk tells him that there's been partisan activity in the area, and this is a known piracy zone. Luthen cordially thanks the captain and says that he'll be careful, but Captain Elk orders him to stand by. He then orders that the tractor beam be activated, and he barks to the crewman, "How long for the ID?" Well, on board the FANdor, Luthen feels the ship shudder as it begins to drift backwards. And jumping up from the pilot's seat, he goes to a panel on the wall and he begins to work some controls as he orders the droid mod to initiate a decoy burn on the port thruster number 4. On the display, an indicator shows the thruster being revved into the red line, while outside the ship, we actually see the thruster kind of sputter and flare. Captain Elk orders Luthen to shut down his engines and prepare for the tractor beam. Sitting back down at the pilot's seat, Luthen toggles the radio and he acknowledges the order, telling them that he's got an engine overheating, so it might take a moment. Then Luthen opens a concealed panel on the console and he arms two switches. The droid mod announces countermeasures charging. Meanwhile, Captain Elk orders the crew to do a thermal scan of the FANdor, and a crew woman tells him that there's an aberrant heat signature in the port side thruster. Suspecting that something is amiss, Captain Elk orders a boarding party be prepped before turning his attention back to Luthen's ship and tells him that the tractor beam has been engaged and further orders him to shut down his stabilizers. Luthen looks concerned as he checks the status of his ship's countermeasures, and he orders the droid mod to calculate the arrestor's tractor force. When Luthen doesn't answer right away, Captain Elk asks him to confirm the request. When the droid mod comes back with Tractor Force 2, Luthen toggles the radio and he feigns an apology, calling his ship a one-man show, and he has to do the stabilizers manually. Just then, the crewman on the bridge confirms the FANdor's ID as belonging to the Alderaan Trade Alliance. The executive officer asks if the boarding party should be canceled, but Captain Elk declines, saying they can use the practice. Captain Elk then orders Luthen to prepare for boarding and inspection, while at the same time, Luthen orders the droid mod to engage reverse stabilizers on my throttle. A little bit of language going on here this week on the display. We get some Orabesh in the form of the, I guess it's the port and starboard thrusters and stabilizer indicators.
Normal, and
these
center
are about,
gun is armed.
These are about the only ones that make sense.
Yeah.
Everything else is kind of blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of jarring.
Port engine boost and port and or starboard engine normal.
Yeah. We got our tractor force 2. I presume X, Y, and Z. Those are axes.
I would believe so. Coordinates. Yeah.
Up, down, forward, back, I guess.
Awesome.
Something like that. Where am I at here? Here we go. Jamming the throttle forward. Luthen jamming the throttle. Luthen's FANdor lurches forward, tugging at the arrestor, causing the bridge crew to actually have to catch their balance.
That was awesome.
Very another fishing analogy, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Whoa, got a big one. The executive officer asks, "What's he doing?" While Captain Elk orders the tractor beam be increased to Force 5. The men on the bridge are bewildered at what's happening, remarking, "Does he think he can get away?" Another man adds, "Where does he think he can go?" Captain Elk gives Luthen one final warning, telling him to power down now or face full consequences. But Luthen just hangs onto the controls as his ship bucks under the force of the tractor beam. Glancing down at the display, the indicator has reached the full mark, and the droid mod announces countermeasures armed. And I don't know what's going on there.
Because not only are the Orabesh characters upside down,
Backwards.
Yeah.
Upside down and
There's
backwards.
There's a character there that I could not identify.
And yet the English numbers are in the correct orientation.
Yeah.
It's weird, eh?
Yep.
It's bizarre.
So.
All right. Here we go, folks. Luthen toggles the countermeasure switches and 2 rectangular multi-tube dispensers spring up and begin belching out bursts of debris. On board the arrestor, the executive officer asks, "What's that?" And the metal debris, having been explosively discharged, is now caught in the same Force 5 tractor beam as the FANdor is, and it rains precisely on the forward tractor dish, shredding it like Swiss cheese. Okay. The descriptive audio calls this chaff. And if that's really what it is, because my first thought when I saw this was, holy crap, that's a flechette dispenser, like a flechette launcher.
Yeah.
Which makes
I thought
sense.
ship-size whistling birds.
Yeah.
That's another good one.
Yeah.
Flechette launcher, that's a real world weapon where basically
Absolutely.
we're talking about a modern, essentially blunderbuss, right? We're just chucking
Yeah.
If it's really chaff, then that makes this like one of the most creative uses of chaff ever, because in the conventional sense, chaff is a radar countermeasure that's intended to foil missile guidance systems by you throw up a big cloud of chaff that's bigger than you are, and hopefully hopefully the missile goes for the chaff and not for you. Which makes sense because, okay, we'll just sit here in the tractor beam. It's all metal. It's going to fly towards it.
But then did he hit it intentionally to boost forward so they would boost?
I don't know.
Tractor beam making that move.
That equal and opposite reaction. Right? Yeah, maybe. I just thought it was a flechette launcher. By the way, because math is not my strong point, but I've been enjoying doing it in this show. There are 44 tubes per chaff dispenser. There are 2 dispensers, and there were at least 12 pulses of chaff for a minimum of 1,056 shards of metal. No wonder it went.
One of them got my finger.
Well, klaxons ring out on board the Arrestor as the crew is shocked by the recent turn of events. Exasperated Captain Elk utters, "No," while the executive officer blurts out, "From a Hallcraft?" The tractor control crewman reports that the forward beacon is failing. More than just a little agitated, the captain says that he can see that as he shouts, "Where's my air wing?" 2 TIE fighters burst from the port hangar, while a third fighter, along with a TIE boarding craft, join them from the starboard hangar. Passing the camera, the lead fighter opens fire. On board Luthen's ship at the same time, the droid mod informs him that the tractor beam is down, so Luthen jams the throttle forward once again, narrowly dodging the incoming blaster fire. Coming about to face the TIEs head-on, Luthen hits a switch, and a dual laser turret springs from the top of the ship, and Luthen targets and destroys the clumsy boarding craft. Rolling between the 3 remaining starfighters as he passes by, Luthen target locks a second one, and the cannon spins around, shooting it down from behind.
So a new twist on the Anakin Skywalker. I'm going to roll.
Oh, yeah, rolling. That's a good trick.
Yeah, try that.
Maintaining his evasive roll, Luthen clings tight to the Arrestor, buzzing its bridge. Just a quick note here on, in case you thought it was a TIE bomber, that is not. It is, in fact, a TIE boarding craft. The design is virtually the same. In fact, it was essentially a TIE bomber that they used for the initial design, but the TIE bomber has the bomb chute on the bottom, whereas the boarding craft doesn't. And canonically speaking, the boarding craft can take 20 passengers or 2 squads of stormtroopers, versus the bomber, which is just a single pilot. Although there is a reference that says that, and I think it goes back to Rebels, where the bomb bay can be converted and can take 6 passengers.
Cool.
But yeah. So yeah, TIE boarding craft.
Neat.
Well, the remaining 2 fighters. Yeah, what's that?
Oh, just the physics on the dish falling into the atmosphere of the planet below.
Yeah.
Just so slowly and soundless.
This entire sequence was beautiful. So satisfying.
Yeah, really good.
So satisfying. Well, the remaining 2 fighters circle back, and despite Luthen's close proximity to the Arrestor, they continue firing at him. And as the ships approach each other, Luthen angles the wings of the FANdor upwards like a shield of some sort. Well, at the same time, these mechanical cylinders extend from the wing struts, and they rotate down into place. And on Luthen's control yoke-mounted display, there's a wireframe model of the FANdor with flashing lights where the cylinders are located. A proximity alert sounds and continuous laser beams, which I akin to a Star Trek phaser, erupt from the cylinders and extend outward out of frame. Luthen puts the FANdor into a barrel roll, and as he passes between the TIE fighters, the lasers cut through them like a hot knife through butter. With the fighters eliminated, the droid mod tells Luthen that they're ready for lightspeed, and Luthen shoves both throttles forward and jumps away, leaving Captain Elk in dismay at what just happened.
So there's a couple of things here. With its wings up in that elevated position,
Shield. The descriptive audio calls it a shield.
It looks a lot like Darth Maul's scimitar.
Yeah, I suppose it does in a way.
It has some similar, and then so we were calling this the lightsabers before we saw it in action.
Yeah,
and Darth Maul's scimitar, red lightsaber, dual lightsabers. The way he was dressed in that alley.
So
there's a lot of stuff.
Speculation leaning into that. Yeah.
Are we saying that Luthen's predilection for historical artifacts, that this is the remnants of the scimitar?
Maybe some Sith
borrowed,
some Sith fighter. I know. It is a FANdor.
They do say FANdor Hullcraft. Yeah.
And Cassian is familiar with it. I've flown one.
And the way that they talk about it, like matter of factly, it's almost suggestive of like, I know I made the joke, oh, Honda Civic, but that's literally the way that they
souped it up beyond
whatever.
Like
yeah, like it's
like Han Solo and Lando didn't know nothing. This guy has souped this thing
right.
Unbelievable.
The ultimate sleeper, right?
Yeah. The CG in this top notch too. Like
absolutely, they did not
theatrical quality CG.
I want to stick with this for a minute, because early on we all most of us that are reviewing the show called it the lightsaber ship.
Mm-hmm.
I want to just say that there was no audio cue that suggested to me that these are lightsabers. There was no.
You right. If you were going to hammer down on that, you would have definitely had.
I for sure would have had the snap hiss. That's what I would have used, and that would have been like and everybody that thought would have been like, but that's not what they did.
No.
The other thing is the beams, they go out of frame, so we don't know how far these things are going.
No.
Did he just sliced the planet?
I think Saw is still down there.
Systems.
Well, there is that. We have seen tech like this before, and I mean, everybody remember the ball turrets on the LAAT gunships fired very much like this.
Yeah, it's like a steady, and they would just move it around.
Yes,
more like a traditional laser.
Exactly.
Than a blaster bolt.
I don't want to discount the idea that this. I don't think it's a lightsaber, but I do not want to discount the notion, because we all kind of were on that same page that we believe that, because Cassian even says, what's powering the ship? Oh, okay, it's Kyber powered.
Yeah,
that Kyber, I believe.
Sure.
That being said, that puts him in direct contact with Galen Erso, because it's Galen Erso's research that allows Kyber to be used as a essentially limitless fuel source.
Oh, or he's really good at listening. Or he's really good at listening.
That too.
I suppose so. I mean, that is a very specific form of tech that until the Death Star, right. It's just not, it's not invented. It's not discovered
yet.
Do you know what I mean? Like, anyway.
Or utilized.
Rogue One Catalyst, by the way, folks, that's the book you want to read to figure out to get the scientific end of how Kyber works.
I was kind of looking in that scene with Saw Gerrera to see if there was like a young Jyn Erso in the back.
Yeah, I know.
She would have been young.
Maybe we'll get Felicity Jones for season 2 or 3 or
maybe
over for, I don't know, 3 seasons. I think maybe is what they're talking. Apparently, originally was conceived for 5. But I'm like, what are you gonna do? But if you did, which makes sense if you did 1 year per season.
But they're talking like, let's do time jumps.
Well, they're talking next season.
I had heard 2 seasons and there would be a huge time jump, but maybe they're going to slow things down with how good it is.
There was a discussion about how next season is going to take us up to 5 days before the events of Rogue One.
That doesn't leave much
No.
Wiggle room.
No. Which means we'll probably, if we do see Felicity Jones, it'll be not in proximity with Cassian Andor.
No,
I wouldn't imagine.
Anyway, so super satisfying. All you whiz bang Star Wars fans, I hope you were as satisfied with this sequence as I was. I love it. Chef's kiss. Ooh, so satisfying. All right. Here's our display of the ship, and there are the blinky blinkies. And again, as you were saying, upside down and backwards, and
that NG character that doesn't get used a whole lot.
No, it doesn't. So I clearly it's the same spelling on both sides. So we're talking about those emitters, whatever they are.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Captain Elk, that's actor Roger Barkley. He was in both Johnny English Reborn, where he played Agent 2, as well as the most recent one, Johnny English Strikes Again, where he played a different character, Sebastian Lynch. Our unnamed executive officer, that's Gethin Alderman, who appeared in The Great as Jean-Pierre, and more recently, The 355, where he played an unnamed French police officer, Gendarme Numéro 1. Well, back on Ferrix at the office of Zanwan Freight, the comm rings. And when Zanwan answers, we hear the voice of Cassian Andor asking, "Are you busy?" Zanwan scoffs as he says, "Excuse me? Who is this?" Cassian asks if he's alone. And Zanwan fiddles with some controls as he tells him, "I'm not getting picture." When Cassian says that he needs to get a message to Marva Andor, Zanwan realizes that it is indeed Cassian on the line, and he calls him by name. But Cassian is quick to admonish him, and he says, "No names." He asks Zanwan to tell Marva that he's okay, and he's thinking about her. He says that she would be proud of him, and that he'll get back as soon as possible. And he asks if Zanwan can remember all that. Struggling with the reality of Marva's death, Zanwan calls him by name again, and Cassian snaps, "Don't." But Zan tells him to wait. And when Cassian asks, "What?" Zan apologizes and tells him his mother is dead. We then cut to a public phone booth just off the beach on Niamos. Cassian is speechless at the news. Well, just a few feet away, Melshi stares out at the ocean. Cassian exits the comm booth kiosk, and Melshi asks him if everything is okay and if he got through. Cassian, still in shock, says, "Yeah, everything's okay." As the two men stand there looking out over the ocean with the sun setting, Melshi calls it a dream, all this room. He asks Cassian how many he thinks made it out alive. Cassian answers, "Not enough." Melshi then posits, "What if it's just us? What if we're the only ones?" And he asserts that someone has to tell people what's been happening back on Narkina 5, and they need to split up to double their chances. Cassian agrees with him and takes Cyril Karn's corporate-issued blaster from the satchel that he's wearing, and he hands it to Melshi. Taking the blaster, Melshi reasserts that the people have to know what's going on. The two men then partially embrace, and Melshi leaves Cassian standing there outside the kiosk, staring at the ocean alone. And as we close in on Cassian's face, we cut to black.
Boom.
Before we get to the wrap up on this, did you have something you want to add, Hank? Before we,
Did you notice the way he's dressed? Cassian's dressed there now that he's lost Marva.
Actually, I was gonna
almost identical to the way he's dressed as a boy before he met Marva.
Oh, the color scheme, yeah,
like the yellow tunic with the orange sleeves. It's not lost on me.
I didn't, because I was too busy laughing at Melshi's shirt and how it's six spoke things, all like the whole pattern. Like, dude, like really, you couldn't
blur your eyes. It kind of
shirt?
looks like your shirt right now.
Oh, mine is like, mine's just little hash marks. I want to talk about Zanwan's shop for a second. Andy, you'd said earlier in the week, like, "Oh my God, there's a bunch of ships there," and I kind of glossed over it. I went back and I watched it again. There's a few screens, and they keep recycling the same images. And this is where, like, I get almost upset with some of these other review outlets that are talking about this stuff. It's like, if you don't know what it is, Don't
dial
say anything, because, and I'm not naming names, but there's at least one outlet that is misidentifying stuff, and it's like, oh, dude, like that isn't what you're saying it is. I don't know what it is, but I know it's not what you're saying it is.
Kind of like Luthen's walking stick, and people are jumping on. Oh, it's a
lightsaber. Okay,
No.
well, listen, I'm not.
It may be.
Okay, so I'm in that camp. I'm there. I'm not convinced that it is, but I'm not convinced that it's not.
We've seen it used once before, though. Already.
As a stick. That doesn't mean that there's not anything in the other end.
No, exactly.
Right. Anyway, I'm going to circle back to Zans for a minute, because there is one that I was pretty confident on. And yes, it is, in fact, it is a Senar Shal Utilipede transport. Now, canonically speaking, one of these ships was converted to a mobile kitchen, and it now serves food over at Docking Bay 7 on Batuu. And that's just a fancy way of saying that it's a restaurant at the Galaxy's Edge theme park.
Nice. That would be a second Galaxy's Edge reference in this episode.
Oh, yeah.
Because when Cinta's working at the cafe, on the outside wall, it's got more of that writing.
Oh, from the menu?
Yeah.
That's funny.
Spruced throughout Galaxy's Edge.
The concept art, I spun it around so it matched the photograph and the screen. That's actually the screen. And the screen's on an angle, so it looks compressed, but that is it. This one is, again, it's a Senar Shal. So Senar, another company that's widely known to make ships for the Empire, but Shal, you recognize the lineage in this ship?
I want to say it looks familiar.
It should, because the Shal company is a Nemoidian company. They're responsible for the Shethipede shuttle. And the Shethipede shuttle, one of those went on to become the replacement for the Phantom in Star Wars Rebels. It's the Phantom 2. Yeah. So nice. Definite lineage there that we all recognize.
Nice.
And that is where I'm going to leave it. Guys, we've got one more episode to get through next week.
Crazy.
I am so at a loss for where I think it's going to go, for where I want it to go. I've been riveted watching the show. I suspect that next week will be no different.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I don't know if my head could make it any better. Like, a lot of times I'm like, oh, I wish this could happen and that could happen.
Yeah, sure.
I don't know that I could make this any better in my head on my own. It's that good.
Yeah.
Knowing that they've already greenlit season 2, I don't think everything is going to tie up in a nice little package.
Oh no, I mean, you've got danglers for future seasons, right?
Yeah,
for at least season 2. Yeah. Will we get an Anto Krieger? I don't know. Maybe not. Probably not.
Well, I mean, when they did the whole capturing of that rebel pilot who they then murdered and staged, we never saw any of that. We just got a little briefing in the Imperial boardroom.
You know, part of me thought that the meeting between Luthen and Saw, that Saw would go through with it anyway, and he would, take the risk. And that still might happen, although I don't think that's a real... I don't think there's a real good chance of that. It'd be like really like curveball.
Because we know he makes it to Rogue One. So.
I certainly want to see it, though. I do want to see this attack on Spellhouse. I think that's going to be something spectacular, even if it's spectacularly like tragic.
Yeah,
for the 50 people. But yeah, I want to see how it goes down, because I'm curious to know, like, this whole like one-upmanship game that's been playing. We've got Cinta and Corv are playing it. We've got now potentially Dedra and Lonnie Young are playing it. And then of course, Vel and Clea. Like, who's the step ahead of whom here? And are we on equal footing? I don't think we are.
No, it's funny because we talk about them always being chess players or chess pieces on the board.
Yeah.
But there's always players above that level.
Absolutely, yeah.
I would say Palpatine is a player on the other side. Who's the player?
Bobby Fischer.
Could Luthen be the player?
Well, this is it. That's again, when I said I'd love to do a character study, and I think I'll probably do a slide for that. I'll put it on our social media, but like the depiction of like, Palpatine, Senator Palpatine versus Sidious, and Luthen gallery guy versus the guy in the bowels of Coruscant talking to the ISB agent. Man, it's just like, talk about two sides of the same coin. It just the metaphor just keeps coming back around. Having to use the weapon of my enemy.
Well, that seems to be like the recurring flip side of the coin, right? Maybe the spell house thing will get more attention simply because we had Aldhani.
Oh,
and if Aldhani is the announcement from the rebels, Spellhouse is the response.
The counter punch, I guess, you might call it. Punch, counter punch. Yeah, that makes sense.
Supply, yeah.
Wow. It's been a wild ride. I've enjoyed it immensely. We're a little behind on some stuff. We still want to touch on, and this is just for future reference, we do want to touch on Tales of the Jedi. We still want to touch on that. I know everybody and their dog has probably covered it already, but we haven't. So that's still stuff to talk about. We've got the Bad Batch coming up here in the new year, and we've got the Return of the Mandalorian in February, I believe so. So again, we're going to be like deep into crossover territory again when that comes out. Between
Ahsoka's first quarter next year.
Yeah, it's going to be a crazy schedule for us come the new year. But next week, join us for episode number 12. And then we're going to have a little bit of a break where we can do some other fun stuff. So that'll be when we do our Tales of the Jedi stuff.
Check us out on Patreon, and we'll do an episode just for you guys.
Just for you. Again, don't forget, guys, we are going to do our 100 subscriber contest. That's coming up as well. And again, if we can get 200 subscribers, then both of these brand new inbox Star Wars The Black Series action figures will be up for grabs. But do watch. We're going to post a short video probably today or tomorrow. We'll get that up. And it'll have all the details how you can get in on that contest. The short version is, we love you all. We want you to please share the love and push our stuff on your friends.
Like, subscribe, comment, hit the bell, do all the things the kids are telling you to
do.
That's
right. Yeah.
Make us influence us.
Again, guys, even if you're not a big fan, you don't want to subscribe, please throw just even an emoji into the comment section, just enough to tell the algorithm that you're there. But other than that, I've got nothing else for tonight. How about you guys?
My episode, my side project.
Your side project.
Season 3 is it's almost done.
Oh, we should probably tell people that.
Wait.
I keep forgetting that
we're technically
it's November.
Yeah.
So, for those of you who have been following us, we launched originally back in October. So that means we just wrapped season 2. So technically, FANdor is a season 2 show because we started deep into season 2. It will be the last of our season 2 material, and everything after this
phase 3.
Season 3.
Yeah.
Season 3.
Man.
And I mean, we don't do our seasons by episode count. We do them by calendar year. So that's
year
3 good for us. We're into year 3.
Wow.
Year 3. So thank you for everyone who's been with us from the get-go. If you're just discovering the channel now, again, just great to have you guys on board. Keep sending us your comments. We love seeing you guys in the live streams. And you know what, guys? There's so much more for us to cover, and we're happy to do that. So we'll keep at it.
Let's make it a big year.
Yeah. Listen, guys, that's it until next week. And we will be back with, again, the last episode of Andor. So until then, my friends, for Fandom Power, my name is Wes.
I'm Andy.
And I'm Hank.
And we'll catch you on the next one, guys. And bye for now.
Power doesn't panic.